terms of the Viva itself, I submitted my thesis in the December and then had the actual Viva itself in the beginning of February. So I had a good period of time there. So I was able to, have Christmas holidays, try and forget about the thesis as much as I could, and just try and clear my mind. So then when I came back in the new year, I still had plenty of time to get back into the flow of it. It was long enough that I was able to go away and forget about it for a little while, but not so long that I'd completely forgot about it and gone into a completely different area. So I think there was having those month and a half, couple of months was really useful.
The length of submission of my PhD thesis till when my Viva examination took place could be different to other people. So we all have different times. But in my own case, it took about 2 months and 11 days from my thesis submission till the day of my Viva presentation.
My Viva lasted for less than 4 hours. It was indeed interesting.
In terms of the Viva itself, my Viva lasted about 2 hours, which, when I've spoken to other people, is on the shorter side. But I felt like I had a really good examination. I got very well challenged throughout that. So even though I was expecting it potentially to go a little bit longer, I was satisfied that I'd had a good test by the time I'd finished. Even though it was only 2 hours, it seemed to go very, very quickly. I thought it'd only been maybe 30 minutes by the time we'd got to the end of it.
My Viva session was entirely online, and this was through the Microsoft Teams. I think it was the whole session took over about 3 hours, and this included my interview session. That is the session where I did my presentation, and I gave them time to ask questions, and I responded to their questions. And also, after my initial interview session with them, I was let out of the meeting, and I had allowed them to use about 30 minutes for their deliberation. The examiners and the vice chairperson that was there to deliberate on the outcome of my Viva.
I always tried to take my time, so I didn't try and rush and give a rushed answer at all, so I gave myself, a moment's pause just to think about the question. If I was ever unsure about what they'd asked, I just asked them to repeat the question again, just so that, and that gives you a little bit of time as well as to think about what you're going to say. Always try to give a well-rounded, well-formed answer rather than just kind of rambling on and on. So I think that's a really key thing that the examiners are looking for. They don't want you to just give a long, drawn-out answer, just, short, sharp, to the point that answers their question.
At the beginning of the actual Viva, it was quite scary because here I was with people that I hadn't met before, but I had familiarized myself with them and they were quite friendly. But as we went on, in a very short while, I was able to be comfortable and be able to answer questions because they assured me, this is your work. Just when we ask you the questions, it's because we want to understand where you are at.
They didn't ask me to do a presentation at the start, but they asked me to, briefly summarize the work I'd done and the main findings. And I'd had a little bit of experience doing this before because I did the 3-minute thesis competition. So I had something of a short overall script in my head, but I did a little bit of preparation before the Viva, writing down what the key points of the research were, what the key findings were. And it was a useful thing to do because I think it helped me settle my nerves a little bit. I was able to kind of get comfortable with what I was there for, make sure that I was clear on what the research was and what the main research findings were. But yeah, settle the nerves, get into the swing of it before the real question started.
For my examination team, I was very involved in selecting my examination team from my initial transfer to PhD. That was my first year of PhD.
In terms of the examination team, I had one internal examiner and one external examiner, as well as an independent chair who sat and kind of chaired the examination. Although to be honest, they didn't do all that much. They were there at the beginning and kind of introduced everyone. and then they just let the discussion kind of progress from there on in.
I ensured that I researched my examiners. And how did I do that? I did that by reviewing their journal articles. This was to understand their level of thinking and what interests them. And having looked at what interests them, whilst in my my PhD Viva session, I was very confident because I was already familiar with their works and their way of thinking.
So they made me comfortable, and I was able to also sit with a friend in the room. I asked a friend who had gone through a Viva examination and a PhD holder, and I asked her just to sit with me in the examination. This helped quite a bit.
I actually had 2 examiners and a chairperson in the team, in the Microsoft Teams meeting where we had a Viva session. The 2 examiners, there's one that is external and I had one that's internal within the university. And also, I also had my supervisory team on the call. Yeah, this is not very, very compulsory. It is not compulsory for you to have them. But I felt, they could be there to listen to my arguments, to listen to my discussion, and to also see how they've helped me.
I was really happy with the team. And as I said before, they gave me a really good challenge. They did test the limits of my knowledge, but I didn't feel they ever did it in an attacking way at all. It felt like a really good, thorough discussion about what I'd done over the last 3 years. So yeah, overall, really happy with how it went.
So my supervisory team were there also with me during the meeting, but they had no input, they had no say. They were all silent all through the whole Viva session.